down very quickly or climb the balloon very quickly to get into the right airflow layer that they want to take the balloon where they want it to go. And what he's doing is giving us a flyby down the crowd line. Gives you a great opportunity to grab some close-up photos there. All he's got to do is careful he doesn't bash one of the aliens in the head. Balloons can bounce off each other perfectly happily.
That is
the thing
nice,
you've got to
isn't
be
it?
careful of is the basket is hard and lumpy, and the balloon is soft and squishy. So you need to make sure that only the soft bits bounce off each other and you don't hit it with one of the baskets. So you will be ultra careful about that. Well, there's a wonderful photo if you've got your cameras out. You see the balloons flying past the aliens. And keeping an eye on
he's getting it close.
the port fail balloon because they are definitely tracking back to the right, but still going away from us slightly.
Wow, that's close.
That extends the screwdriver path a bit below the basket, so the pilot has to be very careful when he's flying, and when he comes into land that he remembers to haul that back in. He doesn't want to catch it on any trees. Now you'll also notice that unlike helicopters and other aircraft, there are no propellers, there's no prop wash as you call it, so there's no wind created by these, because we are travelling with the wind. And it's the only kind of aircraft where you can fly across this field, up over the trees, down the other side, without disturbing a single leaf.
Oh, there's the orange over there.
And you'll see the control that the pilots have in terms of their climb and descent is literally to the inch. They can say, I want to get this right. This is Iggy. Iggy is a baby dragon. And Iggy is the boy. I got told off yesterday because I couldn't remember whether it was a boy or a girl. So we seem to have balloons at the same height going in opposite directions to each other. This is a very unusual weather system. In ballooning we call it L&B, or for light and variable, which is absolutely perfect conditions for flying hot air balloons. You see here one of our cloud hoppers. And you'll possibly see the two balloons.
Now, Jason has flown just about everything, everywhere, including bush flying across Africa. And when he bought this aircraft, he had the thought about how to get it back to the UK, and so decided to fly it himself alongside an experienced transatlantic pilot. And it was a 4-day flight, beginning in North Carolina.
Panel monitors and some backup conventional instruments as well. But a glass cockpit basically consists of a couple of computer screens, whereas most of the instrumentation before that were the round clocks and dials that we're all used to.
I mean, definitely most of the aircraft I've ever flown in have had those dials, and all the aircraft sitting on the ground in front of us will have that same thing. So when you sit in the front seat of this aeroplane, it's like a whole panel of iPads sitting in front of you. And I suppose anyone who's had a look at a Tesla car or the more modern electric cars...
Its range was incredible, up to 6,600 kilometres, or about 3,600 nautical miles. Armament of either 1 or 2 30 calibre machine guns in the bow turret. .250 calibre in the blisters, 130 calibre in what they called a ventral position behind that fuselage step. There's actually a door that you can open up and point, and then you wait till you're almost to where you think you are, and then you've got to reverse the wheel and it will basically stop the turn. That is about the speed that they operated, low level, and the ability to be able to see so much of the ocean. You know, they Qantas during World War. There's some wonderful displays here today at Midlands Air Festival. This gyrocopter being one of them, it is very unusual. For those of you who have not seen a gyrocopter or an autogyro, as some people call them, in action, they are incredible. You can just see at the top of our runway over there, Pete has lined up. This is an Autogyro Europe Calidus, it's the model, powered by a Rotax engine, between 100 and 115 horsepower, depending upon which model.
And look how quickly he got off the ground. That's quite extraordinary.
Now, Pete is an expert in flying this aircraft. He's been flying for over 33 years and was first issued a gyroplane display authority in 1991. Perhaps we shouldn't say that. It gives away his age a little.
Oh, he looks terribly young. He really does.
He became a display authority evaluator in 2012 and has flown this aircraft or others of its type in airshow displays in the UK, New Zealand, and major displays throughout the UK and Europe.
Now, Pete, tell us about, obviously it's got this turning rotor, but this does not work in the same way as a helicopter, does it?
No, this works exactly in the opposite direction. Basically, the forward movement of the aircraft is being controlled by an engine and prop on the rear of that beautifully sculptured fuselage. In the early days, the rotors could be hand spun, but in this, there's a little drive that can start the rotor blade turning, but it does not provide the lift. What it does is get the rotors turning, the engine behind pushes you along, and it's the air that actually comes up through the rotor blades that provides the lift. It's completely opposite to the helicopter, which actually brings air down through the rotor blade disc and pushes it down, providing the lift to the helicopter.
So we've seen how quickly it gets off the ground, we've seen how agile it is, how manoeuvrable, but it will also land incredibly short. So this makes a perfect way of getting to work. You know, seats for two, you can pop your briefcase in the back and commute to work perhaps.
This is a touring aircraft. It's designed for that particular purpose because Autogyro Europe produce another version of this with an open cockpit. does not mean the engine stops as in a car. Basically what it is the wing of the aircraft stops producing lift. Well, with these rotor blades, they are constantly producing lift. In a helicopter, when something goes wrong with the engine, you go into what is known as auto-rotation, where the engine is not driving the blades, but you are using the downward motion and the air moving the rotor blades. In the autogyro, the blades are in a constant state of auto-rotation. Told us just how comfortable this aircraft is, and the visibility, he says, is absolutely outstanding. Great degree of controllability, and of course you're talking about a man with well over 3,000 hours experience in a gyrocopter. Alitalia, Sabina, Royal Air Maroc and British Midlands actually had some.
They are very beautiful, and flying this beautiful machine today is Paul Freeland. And Paul learnt to fly at Sywell Aerodrome down in Northamptonshire in 2008 and has now have over 400 hours plus on this aircraft. He also has an aerobatic rating and the display authorisation needed to fly at shows like the one today. He's also been fortunate enough to fly a variety of other aircraft, including the Beagle Pup, the Slingsby Firefly, Jet Provost and the Tiger Moth. And he's owned this Sierra Marchetti since 2014.
When I spoke to Paul, he actually said that one of the major recipients was Libya, and they had 214 of these. They used them in a combat role against neighbouring Chad between 1978 and 88. And Chad also operated a mixed fleet which included Douglas Sky Raiders provided by France and also captured Libyan SF-260. So it was Chad and Libya with the SF-260 against each other. Burkina Faso also flew the SF-260 against Mali in the Agasha Strip War.
And he said those pilots are having fun. It was such a pleasure to spend time with a real veteran.
You can see that huge torpedo under the fuselage.
And also I can see the person in the rear waving at us, which is brilliant.
Of course, in that position there would have been a 303 Lewis or a Vickers K gun in that rear position, powered by a Bristol Pegasus 9-cylinder radial engine, just under 700 horsepower. It could carry a 1,670 pound torpedo or a 1,500 pound mine or 1,500 pounds of bombs on the fuselage and wings. Incredibly, they could also carry 8 60-pound warhead underwing rockets. Used to great advantage in small escort carriers or merchant aircraft carriers, the MAC carriers as they were known, particularly in support of the Murmansk convoys in appalling weather. Absolute appalling weather. You can imagine what it was like in winter trying to head from the UK up through the Arctic region to resupply the Russians, and these aircraft being used as the U-boat protection.
Now, we talked earlier about the Catalina landing on water, but imagine landing this on an aircraft carrier. It's a very rugged aircraft, but it was described as being dropped into a coal cellar while sitting in a tin bath. And that must have been, it was your daily flying activity to be landing and taking off from an aircraft carrier. That must have been something.
But you can imagine this as well with that atrocious weather in those particular areas. It operated in a lot of areas that you wouldn't believe, and was responsible for a lot of naval activity against the Kriegsmarine. May 1941, a swordfish from HMS Victorious and Ark Royal involved in the hunt and the destruction of the Bismarck. The swordfish torpedo strikes crippled the steering, allowing the surface vessels of the Royal Navy to attack and sink her the following day.
Now you can quite clearly see in these flypasts why they call it a string bag, all those wires all over the place, and it's you can see also the DNA from the Stomp that took off and the Tiger Moth, in that the biplane with the struts between it and the wires keeping everything taut and in place. But the string bag,
a nightmare to actually rig.
It must have been. We also have Roger Bishop, who is a flying nut, and he was listening to stories of his father's wartime adventures as a Wellington rear gunner, and saved up to learn to fly, and worked on an airstrip and anything that he could do to get the money together to get his pilot's licence. The next Richard is Richard Meredith. His paternal grandfather learnt to fly in the Great War, so that would be World War I, and he was inspired by his adventures and that of Biggles. He also was an avid model builder and joined the Central Flying School at the age of 18. He'd completed both his gliding and flying scholarship to get his PPL. And that last Richard of the day, Richard Berreland, was inspired to take up flying by his grandfather, who'd been in the Royal Fleet Arm during World War II. And together they form this part of this flying team. And we have others from the Red Hill Tiger Club who are based with us today, who've been flying this type of aircraft for many, many years.
Of course, this emerged from the Tiger Club, didn't it?
Absolutely.
Tiger Club at Red Hill produced some very, very famous pilots who've been flying on the English and also the UK display circuits for many, many years.
So I grew up watching my dad do air displays, and he used to fly the Stomp as part of the Rothmans display team. As a child, again, I thought the Rothmans made aircraft, and I had no idea they made cigarettes. But one of these aircraft flying today is the very one that he used to fly in air displays, but also in
This manoeuvre is, even though they look like they're scattered all over the sky there. They've been practicing this and flying it for very many years.
Later on you'll see the Red Arrows definitely do these similar manoeuvres where they scatter and then all come back together in a very precise way, so they all slot back into position. But these aircraft don't have air brakes, it's all done on the throttle. They have to manage their speed and position very precisely.
You can see how they're sort of bouncing around a little bit. That's due to the fact that we've got a slight breeze down here, but as you climb, that wind becomes a little bit stronger, and the wind on the ground also affects them where they are, because you've got the air rising up over the trees and creating turbulence, plus we have thermals from the ground heating up.
So thermal's exactly what you need to go gliding, so you can get some lift, but not ideal for keeping a tight formation in an old biplane.
I have been in a glider, but I don't like the fact that there's no noise.
I went gliding very recently with the Central Flying School and had a beautiful conversation. It was lovely. No noise in the engine. You have a perfectly civilised conversation with your pilot in the back whilst enjoying the stunning views.
Just the wind going over the canopy.
And we talk at Midlands Air Festival quite a lot about STEM and young people coming into aviation, and those gliding scholarships and the gliding that air cadets.
Was developed from the Jet Provost T Mark V, powered by the very, very reliable 3,100 pound thrust Rolls-Royce Viper. Engine that saw production and use in quite a lot of jet trainers. It was being the armed version. It was fitted with two 7.62 machine guns, forward firing, 8 wing hard points, which were strengthened portions of the wing to carry pylons that would the strengthened wing and hard points, the upgraded ejection seats as well. It also carried improved navigation and communications equipment.
What's a secret?
Many modifications incorporated in the UK-built Sea King. Lots of components changed, including the engines to Rolls-Royce, the anti-submarine warfare systems, and there was a fully computerised flight control system. And again, the UK mod stemmed from the British requirement for more independent operations. Major users were the Royal Navy, the RAF, the German Navy, the Indian Navy, and also the Belgians. This aircraft is one of the fleet of historic helicopters, which was established in 2013 by Andrew Whitehouse, and his aim was to preserve, restore to airworthy status and operate a select fleet of vintage military helicopters. You see a lot of Spitfires and this and that around the place for warbirds, but these really do have an incredible place. If you think about it, helicopter operations with the military started in World War II, but really kicked along during the Korean War. That the US military realised the need and the benefit of helicopters. The Vietnam War was the helicopter war. And then the operation of helicopters just expanded in every direction in a military context. Historic helicopters currently have 12 helicopters, including one Westland Widgeon, one Westland Whirlwind, a Wasp, 7 Sea Kings, and 2 Westland Wessex. The aims of historic helicopters are basically to educate and inform the public, including but not limited to individuals aged 14 years and above, and those of a military background, of the role of our armed forces and aviation generally by collecting, conserving and preserving and providing apprenticeships. They're based in Chard Equestrian Centre grounds, Chard in Somerset.
Now, what can we see coming out the door? The door opened a little wider just now.
Well, we talked about the 4th crewman, George.
George is being dropped down to, in theory, rescue somebody from who's bobbing around in the sea below.
He's not terribly active, is he? The rotor downwash from the helicopter. We spoke about the autogyro earlier on, the gyrocopter, where the air goes up through the blades, providing enough movement for the gyrocopter to hover. In this case, the air is coming down through. Now, there is an actual formula that you can use to work out the speed of the downwash, and it gets right up there depending upon the weight of the helicopter. I have actually seen with NH90, the Taipan, blow over VW combis on the beach as it was coming into land with an injured sailor off a ship way off the coast.
That's also one of the reasons that Sea King was parked kind of out on its own and not on the flight line, so that when it took off there was no chance of that downdraft damaging of any of the aircraft in the vicinity.
Well, that could get up to around about 150 kilometres an hour, depending upon the type of helicopter and its weight at the time.
So I don't know whether I'm feeling sorry for George, or whether he's nice and cool there on this hot day.
I think he's quite cool. He's come down to have a look. See if the pyros from the TJD models earlier on might have upset any shrink down there. And to preserve history. Some versions of the aircraft fitted with a dipping sonar.
That's thinking in super close so we can get them. Everybody wave please. Ladies and gentlemen, arms in the air, give them a wave. And you can see the crewman quite clearly checking below just to make sure that the aircraft is clear to land. And I'd say that would give Pete and his gyro a run for its money.
I think you could put Pete's gyro inside it.
And it was designed for competition aerobatics. And what Steve's going to show us is the sort of manoeuvres flown at unlimited level aerobatic competitions. Hard enough to perform when you're sitting in the cockpit. I don't know how he does it from the ground, remote controlled, trying to work out if the aircraft's flying towards him or away from him. So this aircraft is a 55% scale model. It has a 15-foot wingspan, it weighs 138 pounds, that's 63 kilograms, and it's powered by a 550cc Boxer 4-cylinder engine. It was built by Steve Carr with the help of Jim and Luke Pierce, and Jim is out there assisting Steve this afternoon. And it's known as an ARTF, which is almost ready to fly aircraft when he acquired it, but he did a lot of personalisation himself. Look at that, an amazingly short takeoff run and straight into a succession of rolls. No need to build up speed, such as the great power to weight ratio this aircraft has. It's made up of light plywood and balsa wood, so excellent power to weight ratio, as I said. And the engine was two pairs of 275cc pistons and cylinders, but everything else is machined from billet material, including the crankcase, the prop driver, bearing housing, spinner and the ignition flywheel. Steve manufactured all those parts using 7075 aircraft grade aluminium and anodized. The undercarriage is Steve's own, and his notes say that he's moulded his own spats from carbon fibre. I was wondering what Steve's footwear have got to do with anything, but of course spats are the fairings that cover the wheels to make it more aerodynamic. Now, Steve has displayed here over the years. In previous years, the aircraft was coloured blue and yellow, but I do love this red and white checkered colour scheme. Now what Steve's demonstrating was a rolling circle, where the aircraft is flying a circle over the ground, but while rolling as it does it. An extremely difficult manoeuvre to fly accurately, but Steve carries it off superbly. Great smoke system there from Steve, and it also has attachments on the wingtips to take streamers or smoke canisters. The canisters are ignited by a Model Radio Workshop solid-state relay, and what we're seeing there is a Pete Tyndall smoke system used on the exhaust, which drops Pete Tyndall's smoke fluid into the exhaust gases, and the heat causes the smoke to appear. But now you can see the canisters on the wingtips being used, so we've got two smoke trails. Now, almost coming to a stop, pulling the aircraft's nose up and hovering. Yes, we don't need a Harrier to hover an aircraft here at the Midlands Air Festival. Dropping like a falling leaf, stopping the aircraft from stalling by keeping it tightly controlled. And now it goes into its prop hanging, and Steve believes this model is the only one of its size and weight able to prop hang anywhere in the world. Very impressive and a great photograph, especially with the multiple smoke streaming there. And I remember seeing somebody doing this in a yak at the Farnborough International Air Show, full-size aircraft, many years ago. Very impressive to see. So the Yak 54 is a two-seat aircraft based on the single-seat Yak 55. And yesterday I was saying that the aircraft has a 3D model pilot based on Steve Carr himself, but not today, because yesterday Steve told me the pilot's head came off during the manoeuvres. So it is currently pilotless. But fear not, because when Steve displays his Blériot radio-controlled aircraft later on today, he's got a 3D model of him in the pilot seat there. There's a negative G push. That would be very uncomfortable if you're in the cockpit, probably minus 5G, the blood rushing up to your head. And now demonstrating a very rapid rate of roll, and flick rolls on the way down as well. The flick roll is really a high-speed controlled spin, and the secret of a successful flick is to come out of the air manoeuvre going in the same direction as you were when you first went into it. Demonstrating the aircraft's amazing rate of roll there. 345 degrees a second is the rate of roll of the full-size aircraft. I think this model is actually doing much more than that. The full-size aircraft has a top speed of 280 miles an hour, powered by an M14P 9-cylinder radial piston engine, developing 360 horsepower. Coming in now on knife edge, using the lift generated by the aircraft fuselage.
And Raven 4 and 5 pull up as the synchro pair. Raven 4 is leading and flown by Gerald Williams, one of the team's founders and former international rugby player, as well as a classic jet pilot. Raven 5 is flown by Russ Ewell, a former Sea Harrier pilot who now teaches the next generation of fighter pilots at RAF Valley. One of the most challenging manoeuvres to fly. Raven 1 is flown by Sid Shirley. He has led the team from the very beginning in 2015. From the left is front of us. Ravens 4 and 5 must have love in the air as they run in 4. And a big round of applause. Hillaloop. Dedicating this show at Midlands Air Festival The team are now running in for the signature move called the Twizzles. And what a great way to remember a great friend.
So the Polaroid is a manoeuvre named after famed aerobatic pilot Eric Muller. It's known as a helicopter spin, which includes upwards negative flick rolling. Out of the aircraft, literally, you can see it helicoptering down, and then pulling up for the next manoeuvre. Now, this aircraft was designed by Walter Extra, another of these aircraft where the designer and pilot named the aircraft after himself, and it was designed to do really one thing, and that was to win aerobatic competitions at world-class, unlimited level, which it did with amazing success. Its strength and stiffness gives it amazing control, and also, as we said, its eye-popping roll rate of around about 400 degrees per second, which means it can do manoeuvres like flick rolls and snap rolls incredibly fast. Pilot Chris Burkett has been an aviation enthusiast all his life, and first flew aerobatics in the de Havilland Chipmunk as a cadet, and later he owned part of his own Chipmunk, and then did early displays with a
Cause unknown, not knowing whether it was anti-aircraft fire or whether it was a German fighter. The aircraft was basically stored for quite a long while, or the wreckage, and it was 3 numbers on one side and 3 numbers on the other.
So the aircraft today is operated by a group founded by Isabel Rutland called Northwind. A very small but growing collection of Victoria champion for best aerobatic performance at all levels in the same year. In addition to flying old aircraft and aerobatic aircraft, Isabel also is a Cirrus standardised instructor and regularly flies from
By Canada, lots of Latin American forces. It was also involved in the so-called soccer war between Honduras and El Salvador, where Mustangs underneath you can see two little stub wings coming out. They had hard points for ordnance, as well as the wing and the fuselage. You can see here Tony's carrying an extra fuel tank underneath. That could also be used for bombs. 4 7.62 M60 machine guns or 120mm helicopters, Sky Raiders or a number of other aircraft. Configured past there. Again, have a look at how high in the saddle Tony actually sits. This aircraft former Luftwaffe target tug, but is certainly representative of the type as it was flown in Southeast Asia. Could also be used as a light transport. You can see at the rear of the fuselage pod there's a large plexiglass area. Well, that was used for the target winch and operator, but they could carry up to 6 fully equipped troops sitting on the floor in that rear cargo area. I think it might have been a bit cramped actually. See, the aircraft is fully aerobatic. The introduction into combat proved highly successful, and from October 1968 it was employed with the 19th, 20th and 23rd Tactical Air Support Squadrons from Bien Hoa, Da Nang and Nakhon Phanom.
Now the aircraft is being flown beautifully by pilot Tony de Bruyn. He has a keen interest, as always, in aviation, which he started from about the age of 10. His first solo was in a glider, and he achieved his PPL on a Chipmunk in 1998. He has a commercial license with single, multi-engine and seaplane instrument and instructor ratings. Most of his experience is on a twin-powered turboprop aircraft such as the Short Skyvan, and he's got more than 6,000 hours flying, mainly in military parachute roles for the air arms all over Europe and also for the RAF. He's an avid enthusiast, and his previous aviation photography background was put to good use when flying the Skyvan and Bronco as a photo ship at various venues throughout the UK and over Europe. Most notable was the Skyvan formating on the Vickers Vimy and also the Vulcan aircraft, plus de Havilland put him off to fast jets including the Typhoon.
Tony's been performing a dynamic figure eight with simulated strafing passes, which is what these aircraft were renowned for. Operating across borders. Some of those borders were not supposed to be crossed during the Vietnam period. They also operated right through into Iraq, completing over 120 missions. Quite substantial losses. There's the last pass there. Nice wing wave. And as you can see, very aerobatic.
I think that's got to be the most dynamic wing wave that we've had of the day. Fantastic.
Well, maybe he's not departing yet. Hopefully. In Vietnam, the US Air Force lost 64, the US Marine Corps 10, the US Navy 7. There were 26 Australian and 7 New Zealand pilots that flew with the 19th TAS and also the 20th TAS in the forward air control role. Memorial Flight Spitfire. First flight in March 1936 and introduced into squadron service in August 1938. That was with number 19 Squadron based at RAF Duxford. It's powered by the Merlin and the Griffin. Operated in every theatre of World War II. Flew with the RAF, the US, the French, Polish, Russians, Yugoslavs, and with the RAAF. Also flew with the Kiwis. That was a standardised armament for British fighters, carried over into the jet age. Aircraft is named Mel Crane after Henry Lardner Burke's wife. Victory markings as at August 43. Burke's total 7.5 victories, 3 damaged in Malta, and then it had quite a few other victories with other squadrons. Later flew with the Netherlands East Indies Air Force in what is now Indonesia, and its last assignment with 322 Squadron Belgian Air Force with the fighter school, l'École de Chasse. Foxtrot Alpha Yankee Foxtrot Tango with the first flight in October 23. You can actually go onto the website and follow the individual history of this particular aircraft, everything that it did. A3A stands for Amicale Alenconnaise des Avions Anciens. My French is abysmal. The group aims to safeguard French aeronautical heritage by the recovery and restoration of aircraft with a constant aim of reflying these aircraft linked to French national air history. Also includes training and integration of youth into different technical branches of aeronautics through practical applications offered by the maintenance of the entire fleet.
Here we go then, ladies and gentlemen. Arriving at over 400 miles an hour in a demonstration of speed, precision and teamwork, representing the Royal Air Force and the very breasted British, the 2026 Royal Air Force Aerobatic Team, the Red Arrows. As the team heads skyward, you'll see them collapse into 7 Arrow. They'll apex the loop at over 6,000 feet, nearly a mile. They're pulling 6G, looking at the top of the canopy to make sure they miss each other at the back. 160 miles an hour. They're going to intercept Reds 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 who are running in over the oak tree for Goose.
4, 3 and 5. 4, 3 and 5. 4, 3 and 5. This is going to be crazy. No, this is crazy.
is bright.